So, Alex Silva, firstly, we've had a little chat, but I mean, lovely to see you again.
Likewise, yeah.
I mean, you still look young and fit to me. I mean, what went wrong? What went wrong in my life?
No, I was just thinking you look the same. You haven't changed.
I always looked old. You currently your location now, as we're just finding out, is Germany, Berlin, I think, which is
right.
Never been there. My wife tells me it's an amazing city, but I've never been there. And I'm picking up a slight German accent coming through. Alex, the boy I knew. What's going on?
Yeah, well, I grew up in Caerphilly. Spent my life in Caerphilly, and then I moved to London, and nobody understood a word that I was saying. I remember getting on buses and saying, "Can I have a return to Crouch End?" And the bus driver was like, "What, mate? I don't know what you're saying, mate. Don't know what you say." So I had to kind of lose my accent in a way because it just wasn't able to communicate. And I guess since then, I don't know. I'm just one of those people that just wants to fit in.
Yeah, I mean, you suppose you had a mixture between a sort of a little bit of an Italian accent and a little bit of a kind of Caerphilly accent to begin with, but now
Taffia accent.
Yes, which is fine.
Yeah. Welsh Italian is a great mix, I must say. I'm very proud to be Welsh Italian, and but I'm sad if I lose my accent because I want to hold on. I love the Welsh accent, so.
There's a little bit in there. It's still in there.
Yeah, it's definitely more there after a few drinks. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the same with most of us, isn't it? It creeps back in.
Exactly.
I was looking through some stuff about you, and I was just saying to you now, I mean, I've learned a hell of a lot about you actually by digging around. But I found this great article from the Caerphilly Observer, I think it was.
Oh yeah.
And it told me about growing up in Caerphilly, and of course your folks were running a chip shop. Is that right?
Yeah? Right. Yeah.
Where you grew up? Because my grandparents ran a chip shop, by the way.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, I never met my grandfather because he died before I was born. But apparently, I hear through the family that he went bust because if people came in, they didn't have any money. So go on, have a bag of chips. You can have a bag of chips. You're all right.
Yeah.
I don't know whether
that's great. With you. Yeah, it was a great experience. I think I nearly made my parents bankrupt because I had a lot of friends because we also sold chocolate and sweets. So I was some kind of a chocolate smuggler for them. So. And my parents, after some years, kind of thought, why aren't we making any money with all these confectioneries? Because I think I was giving half of it away.
They worked it out, did they?
They worked it out, yeah. They rumbled me. Yeah.
The Welsh Italian thing is quite interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, in Italy, you've got Bari and the kind of the Welsh community there. As opposed to Barry Island, of course, which is a different place altogether. But but there's a big Italian community in Wales. I mean, does that have any influence on you and your approach to life? Do you think?
Oh yeah, huge. I mean, the Italian spirit and soul. It's a very emotional one, especially the mother and the father. I had an Italian upbringing at home. Ate Italian, but the funny thing is, like in the chip shop, basically Monday to Friday, I think for 19 years, no exaggeration, pie and chips or fish and chips every day for 19 years or so. But on the weekends, you'd eat really great Italian food, and then in South Wales, in Port Talbot, I think every Sunday when I was growing up was a big, all the Italians from all over South Wales would meet in this place. There was did you ever go to the Double Diamond when it existed in Caerphilly?
I have been there. I know a little bit about it. Is that where they gathered?
No, in a place like that. It was like a kind of aircraft.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure,
venue.
Okay, yeah.
Just being a kid, it felt like thousands of Italians with a band playing. I think even Pino's brother, Mark. I think I saw him play there. I can't remember what they were called. They had an Italian name. So the Italians are a very strong community in Italy, in Wales, and and of course it has a big influence. Sometimes, I mean, to give the full story, moving to Caerphilly in the 70s was also no picnic if you owned restaurants or chip shops. You had a lot of, you know, they're mining communities, kind of very strong spirited people. Suddenly, maybe like the first time foreigners are moving into their town. So I, you know, witnessed a lot of stressful moments with my parents and with drunk people and fighting, and, you know, so it can also be, you know, it's not all roses, but now looking back, I'm kind of super lucky to have had that experience, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think of the Sadolis and the Brashleys as the two kind of main kind of families. If you think
exactly.
of that. There's a lot more across.
I think when my family first moved to Cardiff, if I get it right, from my mother, my family and the Paladinos lived in the same house.
Oh, wow.
If not the same flat or something, because she said that Pino was always driving her crazy, because even from the age of 2 or 3, he was always playing acoustic guitar. And but luckily, I was lucky enough to do a session with Pino. I was producing an album for a big artist in Europe, and Pino came and played bass on a couple of songs. So that was really nice to kind of see him both outside of our Welsh homes, kind of thing.
Yeah. I've never actually met him, but my brother-in-law used to walk him to school. So,
right.
But I know his brother a little bit. But I know across the family and their place in Whitchurch in Cardiff.
In Whitchurch, yeah.
Yeah, which I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
You gravitated into playing in bands. I think Papa's New Faith was the one I think which springs to mind for me.
Yeah, that was the most, I guess, the one that had the most kudos and potential around it, I think.
Yeah. Well, what were you playing? I can't remember. Were you guitarist? I can't remember.
Guitar and saxophone on a few songs. I was like the odd job man. I would play all the apart from guitar, like recorder, saxophone, harmonica. All badly, I must say.
Well, I don't know. I think you did all right. Was it like called Jamie in that band? Is that right?
No, I was in a band with Jamie before. We were called Living School.
Okay.
And then we split up, and then I was in Papa's New Faith, and Jamie was in the band called the Six-Sided Men.
Oh, that's right. Was there a band
was
called?
he? Yeah, was in the Six-Sided Men.
Was it Banana Cat? Was there a Banana Cat?
Oh yeah, Banana Cat. But then I worked. But then years later, I was working in studio, so I ended up working with all the bands again, not as a musician, but as an engineer stroke producer. So I worked with Banana Cat, The Pier, and like at the time, loads and loads of Cardiff bands. That was my life, was bands and the music scene in Cardiff.
So Soundspace, of course, which was funny enough. The other day, by the way, I spoke to Greg Haver.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, of course. That's
in New Zealand.
Yeah. Living in Auckland now.
Yeah, nice.
And he was saying about Soundspace. Of course, if you remember, it was Soundspace, which you obviously will. And I was working at Red Dragon Radio, which was just like literally across the way, wasn't it? You know, kind of back
2 meters. Well, 10 meters away. Yeah.
So, and I remember it being a kind of a bit of a hotbed because all the bands were rehearsing there for up and coming bands in Cardiff. Was that what you were doing then to begin with, Alex? Were you working with those kind of bands and creating demo material to begin with?
Yeah, well, basically, Papa's New Faith, we signed like a big publishing deal with Polydor and a guy called Lucian Grange. I think he was the guy who found Amy Winehouse. So we signed a big publishing deal with them. We had a very inexperienced manager, and the publishing company said, well, we think you need to lose your management because it's not going to work with them. And somehow we were kind of young, full of ideals, and you know, and our team being what it was. And we said, no, we're not going to get rid of them. Even though, to be honest, in hindsight, they were probably right. They were totally inexperienced. So they said, well, okay, then we have to drop you. And then I kind of, at that point, thought, well, I've been doing bands now since I was 14. And I just had a sniff of breaking through, and now it's gone again. Yeah. So, and at the same time, I was starting to get a big love of recording. The Porter Studio thing was just becoming big. And so I thought, I want to get a job recording. I find that more fulfilling right now. So I got a job before Soundspace, it was called Chariot. A guy called Ian Wallace.
I know Ian, yeah.
You know, who I got to say, incredibly talented man. I mean, he designed the place. Me and a guy called Matt Silva, no relation, built it. Ian took us both on as apprentices in his studio, which I'm forever grateful for. You know, it was a tiny 8-track studio. And then he left it and Soundspace took it over.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Ian did that record, didn't he, with the whales? Remember the whale sound stuff he
Probably.
did? Yeah.
No, but I can imagine he did.
Yeah. He did this really strange music with like whale
Yeah.
sounds and stuff in it. I think I'm right.
Yeah, he did. I think I remember once him and his brother were doing something about Ozymandias.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And
yeah.
it was great, you know.
Yeah.
It was really good. Yeah, he was kind of could have been nowadays a guy from Silicon Valley, one of the founders of Silicon Valley or something.
Yeah.
He was a very special guy, yeah.
Very talented, very bright. I don't know what happened to him in the end. You got any idea?
No idea. No, we lost touch.
No. But then you moved into production and into sound space. And like I say, at that time, it was quite a good time actually in music in Cardiff, because some bands were getting signed and it was kind of exciting. Can you think about maybe some people you met on the way up? I mean, Catatonia, no doubt you would have bumped into them down there.
Yeah, I think I even might have recorded them, although they were, because before that they were called Sweet Catatonia, I think.
Yes.
So I might have even recorded Sweet Catatonia. And I remember working with the Darling Buds, which were a Newport band, which were like...
yeah, of course, yeah.
What was that band who did Crash? They were a bit like this...
the Primitives.
A bit like the Primitives or something, no? They were cool. And then, there's so many bands that never made it to deals and stuff.
Yeah.
But somehow I learned a lot, 3 songs a day, 3 songs and a mix a day. 3 songs and 3 mixes per day. Normally, that was the budget bands had. I mean, nowadays I spend more like 12 days on one song. But I somehow love this impromptu, quick working. I mean, in this case, the band has to be really good and well rehearsed. Then you can do an album in 2 or 3 days, no problem.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how they used to do it back in the day. They would. I think the Beatles' first album was done in 3 or 4 hours or something.
Well, I mean, they worked in shifts, didn't they? They did like 9 to 1, went out for lunch and recorded some more in the afternoon, sort of thing.
Yeah, but I mean, I was lucky enough to work with Paul McCartney.
I know.
Years later, which was amazing, and he. I mean, now and then you have just beautiful experiences, and one of them definitely was with him. And it was a lunch. We were in a lunch break, and there was just me and him in the recording area, and he just started singing and playing Lady Madonna full blast. And it's just. And when he had the Hofner bass and he had the little set on the side of the bass, still the set list from Candlestick Park, which is their last ever concert in New York. And I think it was in New York, and he took it off and gave it to me to look at and hold. So he's super proud of it, but very overly humble, I would say. He tries. Well, yeah, he tries very hard for you. He's aware of you being aware of who he is.
Okay.
And lucky enough, as a contrast, 2 weeks later, I was working with Mick Jagger in his house in Richmond, and he was the opposite. He was like, "Well, I know who I am, so deal with it. You better start relaxing and deal with it." Whereas Paul McCartney was more trying to make sure that you felt comfortable and not phased that you're with the kind of legend, basically. So.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't get too much bigger names in music than that, though.
No, but to be honest, the reason this was when I first moved to London. I was lucky enough to meet Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics, who is a beautiful, beautiful person, and he really took me under his wing, and I learned a lot about record production under him, and traveled, basically all over the world producing. At that point, he was a producer, so I became his programmer. And in this 2-year period, I worked with Daryl Hall and John Oates and Marianne Faithfull, Paul McCartney, Mick Jagger, Bon Jovi, Texas, Shakespeare's sister. It was just this endless stream. And to be honest, I was a little bit dizzy by the end of it. I was thinking, well, am I enjoying doing this now, or am I just like a stamp collector filling up a book of famous people I've worked with? So I thought I want to start producing, maybe go down a few pegs and start working with new up and coming bands and have that experience too, because it was a stunning experience, but I don't know if I felt I was getting a little bit lost in other people's music and not necessarily being fully involved in it somehow. So
I think it was in that Caerphilly Observer piece where there was a great little exchange where you said about working with Mick Jagger. If I remember, I've only read it recently, but apparently he picked you up in his sports car and took you to his studio.
His manager, I think his manager or his road manager would pick me up. I lived on Holloway Road in Archway, which is the polar diametric opposite of Richmond, of this big house Mick lived in. And at the bottom of his house, he had a recording studio, like in a garden house kind of thing, which is like a kind of big house by most people's standards, his little recording studio. So I would just be picked up every day, driven around the back into this studio, and I would wait there, and then Mick would walk in, literally just me and Mick Jagger, and he was writing for a solo album.
Oh yeah.
And he just wanted someone. This job came via Dave Stewart. He wanted someone to help him just write beats and things like that. So I was just doing live beats on a drum machine. It's something I learned and became a little bit my calling card. Why people wanted to work with me. I could quickly. I think I even did it with one of Jamie's bands where their drummer was bad, was ill, and we played in the Great Western. So I became the drummer, and I literally sat where the drummer is on with a drum machine playing the pads kind of thing. So so I was good at doing that, so I could help people
with stick. Was that with sticks, Alex, or with fingers?
With fingers.
Yeah,
like finger drumming.
Yeah.
Which I still do now. I love doing it somehow, but now I do it more in a writing environment, and then when you're doing the proper recordings, you replace that with real drums.
Okay, yeah.
And real musicians.
So the Mick Jagger thing that I picked up on, which I know it was just it wasn't just another day for you. I'm sure it wasn't. But Mick Jagger apparently got up. You were working with him. He started doing his, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you couldn't make it up really, because I think probably I was so close, the wind from each clap was hitting me. So it was literally right in front of me. And there's those things where you in a way, I had my head down drumming, wanting to look up, but afraid to look up because I thought, well, he's doing his thing. I mustn't just gawk at him. So, so it was kind of also a learning thing to try and be a relaxed person, because, I mean, slowly it took me years and years, because I was still very able to be starstruck with a lot of bands I worked with.
Well, anyone would be, I suppose.
Yeah, but they're really totally normal people, and he would always, like, Mick Jagger would say, "Come on, let's go and have a cup of tea," and go over to his house and have a cup of tea and things like that. So it was I'm honored to have been given that chance, just to experience those things. And
But just taking you back a step from that, because it's interesting how your journey's kind of panned out, really. But taking you back to the Soundspace days, how did you manage to get the Manics gig? How did that come about for you? You started working with them on some pretty big stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, well, no, it was the first thing was Theme from MASH, which was at the time, it was a free add-on to an NME magazine, like a free, I think, a CD of covers from different bands, and that was the Manics contribution. I think the record label liked it so much that they decided to make it a single in its own right, and possibly became their first top 5 single, the Manics. And then months later, I remember bumping into, I think, Nicky in town in Savini's or something, like this cake shop. And hearing, I think they were meant to be going to Parr Street to do this Holy Bible album, but they weren't sure, tiny possibility they might come to Soundspace. So I literally was, I probably was begging him, or just telling him that we would, do everything to make sure they had a good time if they came to Soundspace, And I'm very happy they did. I'm you know, maybe of everything I've done, I'm still very proud of doing the Holy Bible. You know, it's become a seminal album, and it was a great experience. You know, they were the first, you know, professional band I worked with over, you know, in an intense period of time, not just doing a B-side or something, but doing an album.
Yeah.
Such an important album. Was huge, you know, and I was lucky enough to meet Richie, and it was the last time Richie would make a record, so it's kind of but at the time, not in any way a sad, dark time. I mean, if you heard the album, you would imagine it was a really heavy session. It was a heavy session in other ways, just because it was very intense work-wise.
Yes.
But all the band was in a good mood. Richie was a lovely person, always smiling, always very happy. Yeah, it's terrible what happened to him. You know?
So Richie's the only member of the band that I actually met.
Right.
Because I interviewed him at Red Dragon, and he came in, and probably around about, you know, must have been around about the same time, you know, and he was so frail. He was so
really
kind of and kind of vulnerable, and he wanted to show me the scars on his arm from that thing with the, you know, with the blades,
for real, and
and all that, you know.
But I think that was all after
maybe
the Holy Bible.
Yeah,
it was like I guess there was a period of about a year between finishing the album and what happened. Awful.
But I mean, working with the Manics is not a bad start to your career. Was that like sort of on your CV? I mean, that was your calling card. Was it with Dave Stewart then?
Yeah, it was. Well, basically, I just split up with a girlfriend, so it was a very tumultuous time for me. And I actually wanted to go to Japan because I thought, well, the Manics are big in Japan, so I might get work out there. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I was thinking I want to get the hell out of Cardiff and get as far away as possible. So I think I even had vaccines for going to Japan. And I thought, well, before I do that, I'll move to London, and I'll just not disappear on the other side of the world, but make some contacts with management or something. And one of the guys was the guy, Tony Quinn, who looked after the publishing of Dave Stewart. And he said, what are you doing? You want to go to Japan? What is wrong with you? So he said, come to London. You can just stay for a few weeks with me and my girlfriend. He's an Australian guy, lovely guy. And come and stay with us, and we'll just, you know, maybe I can help you a little bit. And then the first thing was Dave was doing this album called, doing a movie called Showgirls, this film from Paul Verhoeven, which now has become a kind of cult classic, I think. And basically, one day I got literally, as soon as I was in London, well, can you go in and meet Dave, because he needs someone to help him finish the last part of this soundtrack, because his guy is leaving to do a Bryan Adams album. So basically his programmer left to go and work with Bryan Adams, and that opened up a door for me. And then I started working with him. And the first night I arrived in London, Dave, I think actually before I even went with my manager, Dave Stewart already wanted to meet me the first thing I arrived in London. So he put me up in his studio in 7 Dials. He had like the epitome of a rock and roll studio. He had a carpet full of LED lights. The walls were purple glitter. The bedrooms had like about 30 tiny TVs going around. And I came literally from Caerphilly, and was somehow in this like fantasy, like a MTV video of a apartment, waiting the next day to meet Dave Stewart, thinking, just basically, I think I was maybe invented the selfie, because I was on my own there, and I was just taking photos of myself with all this stuff going, where the hell am I? You know, this is nuts. And he was lovely, and he said, come on, let's, you know. And he was at the time was one of these people. I think he liked this Andy Warhol factory mentality. He had, if you would work with Dave Stewart, it would be one day day after day you'd be in the studio and you don't know what you're doing, but one minute the accountant of Paul Allen comes in, who was the guy who founded Microsoft, to play saxophone on a song, and then the next minute is Charlene Spiteri after lunch for 2 hours because he just wants to quickly do a vocal on something, and then 3 hours later is Damien Hirst comes in to shout something down a mic for part of an installation. So it was just like it was just bonkers, you know. It was bonkers, but the dream come true in a way, you know.
So Dave Stewart, was he working with Annie Lennox then, or was that after then?
No, I met Annie Lennox, but not, they weren't working together. But they were friends, I think.
So Dave Stewart, I mean, when you look at some of the work that he did, some of the music that he did, maybe the Eurythmics, you know, fantastic pop songs. But then when you actually kind of break them down into what they are, sometimes they're surprisingly simple. I wonder what you think as a producer made Dave Stewart such a successful songwriter. What was the secret for him, do you think?
Oh, yeah, I mean, great. You know, the production was kind of skeletal. It was very, very stripped down, but there was a great detail in the sound itself, you know, which is always, you know, what I strive for as a producer, to do the least possible thing needed, but those things to be essential. And in a way, why hip-hop music is so good also, or at least aspects of hip-hop is so good, that the production is pared down to the bone, but every nuance of hi-hat sound, every kick drum beat has a intention and a purpose behind it, you know. So, and I think that was the same, coupled with an amazing singer. You know, and I would be with Dave Stewart walking through Covent Garden like 10 years after the Eurythmics have split up, and people would stop and basically kneel before him, and you know, not that he wanted that, but that people were so touched by what the Eurythmics did that for them they were almost like a spiritual experience. The significance of what this person had, you know, not that he had a god complex or anything, but but it's amazing sometimes the power that music has for people, you know.
I think there was something kind of magical about the combination with Annie Lennox. And Annie Lennox, this must sound really weird, but she had a kind of almost like an androgynous look about her, you know. It was something unusual, something that captivated people and captured them, and that then hooked into that, you know, really, really kind of catchy, simple songwriting, and it was just a great combination, you know.
Yeah, phenomenal. Yeah, and before that, of course, they were the Tourists, who had,
of course,
this.
I Only Want to Hold Your Hand was a big one. Was the cover? I think.
Yeah, exactly. Not only want, I only want to be with you. No?
I don't want to be with you. Correct. Yes, that's right. To mix them up with the Beatles.
Yeah. I only want to hold your hand, right?
Dave Stewart, is he from Liverpool? Am I right in thinking that?
No, he's from Sunderland.
Oh, is he? Okay, further north, further north than I thought. But he was the kind of down to earth guy living. You know, kind of. He said he had a kind of a kind of showbiz kind of style apartment, but he was actually fairly approachable, really, was he?
Oh, totally. Yeah, he's a working class boy, but he knows how to be a pop star, you know. That's a role that also people play, you know. But it doesn't mean he doesn't think he's that to himself or when he's at home with his kids, you know. There he's just a lovely, very laid back person, you know. But you know, and he doesn't take it at all seriously, anything, you know.
No, which is good.
I mean, I haven't been in touch with him for a long time now. But you never know. Everything comes around at a certain point.
So, do you have to work through a manager these days, Alex, or do you?
I did when I was in London, and which was great. But the thing I tell young people that want those things now, like production, young producer want management, is, well, you know, managers don't do anything. They don't make your career. They just manage whatever career you have going on. So if you're lucky, they might push you towards, you know, if they have their ear to the ground, if you're lucky, they might get you in somewhere. But generally, they don't make a career for you. They just help manage what you have going on yourself. So, and it can be a slight trap, myself included. When you have a manager, you're always waiting for them to do something for you, and that's not really what their job is, you know.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't pass on the responsibility of being energetic and trying to get work to someone else. It's always up to you.
It reminds me a little bit of football agents. You know, you hear similar things from footballers about their agents. This is a really strange question now, but have you by any chance seen the series Toast, the comedy series Toast?
Toast of London.
Yeah. Have you seen that?
I've seen bits of it. I know him more from, which I love, is Gareth Marenghi's Dark Place.
Yeah, I mean, he's great, isn't he?
Yeah, he's brilliant. Yeah.
The reason I mention it is the relationship with his kind of manager in that program. You know.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen some things on YouTube.
Yeah, it's
really
good.
He was in he was in the IT crowd. He became the MD of this company or something. So yeah,
he does loads of voiceover stuff actually, doesn't he? I think.
Yeah.
Ed, I noticed that reading through stuff, you ended up, like you said, you recorded all over the world. I mean, you know, you're just traveling everywhere. But notably, I picked up on a couple of things you mentioned, because I mean, I lived in the south of France back in the 80s, working on a campsite, may I say? Yeah.
Right.
But I noticed you went out there and worked in some amazing studio, and you went out to kind of, you know, Scandinavia and all these kind of places.
Yeah.
You know, doing incredible things, really.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the perks, because if you know, it's changing. The business is changing all the time. You know, we're talking about major changes even in the last 8 or 9 years. Before, a band, basically, I mean, I have a very beautiful studio in Berlin. Has a studio called Hansa where Bowie did all his stuff, and Iggy Pop. I have a studio there with an artist that I'm very closely with Herbert, yeah. So we have a studio there together, most beautiful studio, but nonetheless, every time you start a new album, the first period of this album, when you're getting the songs together, you need to be inspired, you know. So you go, okay, well, this time we're going to go to New York, this time we go to the south of France, this time. But that's disappearing because there's just not the money anymore to do that. But it was an essential thing. And there was a kind of like a gig, not like a pub circuit, but there was a studio circuit in the 90s where all the bands would say, you know, in Miraval in France, which now became Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie bought it and built a vineyard there instead. But that was a great studio. You know, there's La Fabrique in the south of France. In Capri, there was a studio on top of the hill where you would have to have not runners, but porters bring up your equipment by hand up and down the mountain. So Stockholm, it was Benny from ABBA's studio. Beautiful.
Yeah, of course. Did you meet him?
Yeah, I met him. Yeah.
Nice guy, probably.
Very nice guy. He had a Synclavier, which was like this phenomenal synthesizer. He had like a mint Synclavier, and we were doing an album, and we asked, well, do you mind if we use it? And he kind of said, no, it's fine, you can use it. And we used it for one day, and then the next day the startup disc had been confiscated. So
really,
it was like, okay, you've played without enough now. I'm taking the startup disc back. So, no, he's a nice guy. He's a nice guy.
Wow, amazing experiences though.
But
the guy you're working with at the moment is Herbert Groenemeyer.
Yeah.
How do you pronounce it? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's actually perfect. Grunemeyer, yeah.
Well, that was a good guess. But
that's right, yeah. No, you got the umlauts, the 2 dots above the O.
That's right, yeah. But yes, which you get a little bit in Welsh, don't you? Actually, but they're obviously not called umlauts, but the same kind of thing in Welsh with the O as well, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there are some connections I think, between Welsh and German, funny enough.
Definitely, yeah.
But Herbert Groenemeyer, for people who don't know him, tell me a little bit about him, and because I've seen some stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I've worked with him for the longest period of any other artist I've collaborated with. I mean, I'm still, even now with the Manics, I'm in a collaboration with Mickey, and sometimes I do stuff with James, and we're still all friends. But Herbert is like someone like a partner almost. And I've produced the last 7 albums he's done. So I've worked with him for 22 years. And been very lucky with him. One album we did is called Mensch, and became the best-selling album of all time in Germany. Sold nearly 4 million copies. Sold more than Thriller or any other album, international or German. For the Germans, I don't know how you would compare him. For the British, it's somewhere between Elton John and Glenn Tilbrook or something, like a bit more like Elton John as a singer-songwriter, but lyrically a bit more quirky and very loved for his lyrics. So we've had big success together, and basically also best friends in a way, because we've been with each other so long, and we, even when we're not working, we always phone each other and stuff. So
what kind of venues does he play? Does he tour the world, or is he,
he plays the Enorma Dome in Germany. He plays like the Olympic Stadium, or he's an artist who, when he says I'm doing a small tour, that means 8,000 seaters, So his normal tour, which he does every 3 or 4 years, there between 50 and 70,000 seaters, and he'll do 20 of those in Germany, and then he'll always do one in Paris, one in Amsterdam. But we also did an album in English, which he went to America and toured America with it. And that's more, I think, not at this stage to try and crack America or be a superstar there, because I think when you've tasted it, you're quite happy in a way that you're a superstar in a few countries and not everywhere. Because you're very grateful for the privacy when you get to go to other places. So I think for him to go to New York was more, to go to America was more to enjoy going back to the grassroots of touring in a small van and small crew and stuff, and just playing music without the big production,
I watched a video of a conference at some event where you were sharing a panel with him, and and he was kind of teasing you a little bit about German, etc. Although I'm sure your German is actually very good, but he was teasing you
brilliant.
About it.
No, it's not. It's terrible. It's not so bad. It's not terrible, but it should be much better than it is. And because the Germans are very good, generally very good English speakers. On top of it, the music business is even more English-centric in everywhere you go. So I speak a lot of German when I'm not with people I know. When I'm with people I know, it's a matter of fact, like, well, let's be honest, we can communicate a lot better in English. But when I'm not with people I know, I enjoy speaking German. It's actually a beautiful language, and it's a bit of a myth that it's a very hard, rough, aggressive language, because it is if you want to speak it like that. But Germans maybe take even more care, because it is a very consonant-based language, that it's spoken normally quite in a quite delicate way, kind of thing. So it's I actually find it to be very nice on the ear. But that's another thing, because some artists I work with, they might do some stuff in German and then do an English version. But it is such a massive effect, the transition from the German language to the English, that quite often you can't just work from an instrumental and do a different language. You have to remix it, because the music, the language works a totally different way.
That's more work for you, Alex.
Not for me. I don't like mixing.
Oh, don't you? Oh, right.
No, because I can't commit to. I mix. I actually think I'm even okay as a mixer, but I what's the word? Procrastinate for hours and hours about simple decisions, because anything can be done one of 20 ways. And as a mixer, you just have to go, this is it. This is the sound, and this is what we're doing. And I always halfway through a mix go, but maybe then I should do it like that instead, and then go back. So I find it quite stressful.
So are you more of an executive producer then? And do you take more of an overview of it that way?
No, I'm a producer. I and sometimes engineer, program, and produce. If the budget's bigger, I like to have an engineer. So I just normally then program and produce. And there you're working in direct. You work as an extra band member. You're there providing ideas, suggesting approaches to how to do a song.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when I finish in the studio with a band on a bigger production, I might work for another 6 months on my own on post-production, changing the programming, fiddling around with sounds and things like that, and then give it to a mixer. But when I give something to the mixer, I don't give them, you know, I print everything. This is how I want it to sound, this particular track. So I don't give it without any effects or EQ. I give it to them EQ'd, compressed, and with the effects I want. So all they're doing is balancing the tracks that I presented. They're not having to add any extra spice on the top.
Okay.
Other than the very end compression and EQ and stuff like that. So
yeah. All right, that's interesting because obviously, you know, I'm interested in it, but I don't know, you know, I don't really know the way the industry works in that way. And then there's mastering guys you use separately again. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, they're the final. They're the guys who basically have firstly, their room is very specially prepared. That it finds any imperfections in, well, you can't say imperfections, but any unintended consequences of how you produced and mixed an album. And they just listen in a way like surgeons and put a final EQ or compression on the music so that it works across all formats, especially nowadays. You know, you have to be aware that people listen on their iPhone, on the speaker of their iPhone, and the same record might be heard on a very expensive hi-fi in a house, and it has to work on all of those formats, you know. So that's a special art, I would say. Yeah.
Which I mean, you can see this is my little home studio. You know, it's my shed.
It's great.
It's the shed at the bottom of the garden, as you probably know. But there we are. At least I'm still doing some music stuff. But
that's great.
You know, it's just nice. It's just nice to play and make music.
Yeah.
A lady called Nina Hoss.
Mm-hmm.
You know this lady quite well.
I've heard of her, yes.
Yeah. Tell me how did you get together? I'm quite interested.
Again with Herbert, we were doing a project. There's an American theater director who did a lot of work with Tom Waits and who did this Einstein on a Beach with Philip Glass and lots of, he's a theater director that always works with musical artists. Mm-hmm. So we were asked to do the music for one of the plays. So I went to Berlin to go to the rehearsals, to meet everyone and stuff. And lo and behold, she was the lead actress in this theater play. And the nice thing was we had an opportunity to get to know each other through working with each other, and not in a club or a bar where you have to make a fool of yourself and impress someone in 3 minutes flat. Yeah. You know, there was the chance of like 4 months of being in an environment where you're in Berlin, you know, working on a theater play, which is great fun. And then afterwards in the bar of the theater, in a nice garden, drinking beer, you know, you get to know everyone you were working with. So yeah, we got to know each other, and now we're married, and we've been together like 18 years, I think.
18 years?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, congratulations.
18 years. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
I've been married for 18 years, so yeah. So I've been with my
right
for the same amount of time. Yeah. And of course, Nina is. I mean, I've seen you. You know, you're there with that thing where they go down that red carpet and they're all waving at you at the movies and all this. You know.
Well, they're not. No one's waving at me, but they're waving at Nina.
Yeah, you're looking pretty cool there, though. Do you like doing that? Oh, you know.
No, I do it. I do it quite rarely. I don't really. You know, one of my pet hates are these kind of TMZ and Hello Magazine and all these.
Okay.
So I mean, Nina is not that kind of a person. She's someone who does what she does and found great success working internationally because she has a passion for what she does and she wants to do great work. She never did it to become famous. So, and I'm very happy to be behind the scenes in what I do in my work, because I know how much work is involved in promoting, and always being there for everyone to shake their hands and have to chat to everyone. But of course, not if you do it once every 2 or 3 years, which I do, when there's a Berlin Film Festival or something, then yeah, I'm also very proud to be with my woman. You know, she's someone I love, and I'll walk down the red carpet with her.
Yeah. Can she not step outside the door without being recognised? How much is she's putting big news in? No,
I mean, she did Homeland, which is this American TV show. So, funnily enough, in America, when we would be in America, people would come up to her and go, you know, stop you in the street and kind of go, oh my God, you know, I know you, I love you, I love what you did. And but in Europe or even in Germany, it's more people would look, but kind of rarely someone comes up and then if someone does come up, they're probably not German. They're probably then a foreigner going, oh my God, I can't believe I've come to Germany and I'm looking at Nina Haas, because she's, as far as internationally goes, if you talk about German actors or actresses, she'll be one of the people that people would know, I guess. So
yeah. Well, you know, it was great you're both doing so well in your different fields. You know,
she sang on the Manics. The last album I did for the Manics.
Wow.
Yeah, the last album I did was what's it called? After Rewind the Film, their last but one album.
I'm not good with titles.
Well, the song was called Europa geht durch mich. So she was the guest singer on one of the songs, and we did it in Berlin. And James said, well, we want someone to sing German. And I said, well, why not Nina? She's a good singer, you know. And so he was a bit nervous, going, oh shit, okay, what happens if I don't like it? Now the producer's wife is going to be kicked off.
Good point.
It's not, I didn't think about that, but he was right to think that. But luckily, he said as soon as she opened her mouth, he loved what she did. So, you can see it on YouTube. And we went to Glastonbury and she sang in front of 60,000 people with the Manics. Yeah. You know, so...
you were side of the stage, I guess, were you?
Me on the side of the stage, yeah.
Yeah?
So, it was great. It was great.
That's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm looking through some of the stuff you've done here recently, Alex. And I noticed it's not, I don't think it's promotion. I think it's just you're genuinely excited by it. It kind of leads us back to the Manics, actually. Your kind of association with Kemper. Because everyone seems everyone's going like Kemper crazy, the people who can afford it, you know. What's so special about Kemper?
Well, there's a lot of them now. I think you have this bias system as well. And I think Softtube have just released a bunch of just speaker cabs, you know. I mean, it gets more and more sophisticated and realistic sounding the whole time. The good thing about Kemper is, and I used it a lot making records, is you work with a guitar like normal, with a guitarist and a guitar cab. And what you can do with the Kemper is when the guitarist has finished his part and you go, okay, that's a take. You might be, like we say, you might be in a different studio somewhere else in the world. Once you've got the take down, you patch in the Kemper and you hit sample, and basically it plays a bunch of sounds that sound like a UFO landing through this guitar cab, like kind of, and then it samples it all. And then you save the preset, and then you can go back into your bedroom, back in Berlin or Caerphilly or whatever, plug in your guitar, and you've got the sound again. The sound that you spend 3 hours getting in a studio somewhere. So that's pretty phenomenal. Yeah. And of course, now there's a big community. There must be hundreds of thousands of samples. You know, if you plug now your acoustic into that Fender amp, which might be something unexpected or whatever, and stick a couple of pedals, you might make a great sound. Now you can stick that online for other users to access, and then they use it in different ways. And it's a good kind of, it's a great tool. For me, it never will replace real guitars and real amps. I mean, I have a lot of microphones that I use. I have like about 50 different microphones that I use for recording. Well, let's say about 8 of them are specialized for guitar recording. different ribbon mics, and lots of different amps and amp heads. So over the years, you build up. Well, you will know as a musician, you build up. A house worth of gear in a way.
Yes.
So,
and most musicians apparently try and hide some of it from their wives. I'm not sure how.
Yeah, or they say you won't believe this, but this guitar was on half price.
Yeah.
So I had to buy it.
It has happened to me. My wife's when I first had the Gretsch, she said, "Oh, that's nice. You know, when did you get that? Oh, you know."
Special offer. This guy came up and sold it to me. Yeah.
It was a bargain. I sold loads, you know. But the Kemper thing really intrigues me because I mean I've still got like a pedal board down here, but I know lots of people are moving away from them, aren't they? Too, you know, for that reason. So.
Well, you still use your pedal board. I mean that's the thing, and that's why. Like gearheads build up such a collection of stuff, like microphones. You know, you can argue, you can see it on YouTube, even these guys that say, I bought the cheapest condenser mic I could find on Amazon, and I do a direct comparison with the Telefunken U47, which cost $30,000.
Yeah.
I mean, when you listen to it, you go, yeah, it's not that different, to be honest. It's like, but I guess there's some in undescribable nuance. So that's why you end up with 40 microphones, when in reality, I'm sure I could live with 4 or 5 microphones and get mainly everything I need done from it. Well, so
I wanted to ask a question on that, Alex, as well. Actually, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I can't remember why I was giving you that answer. I can't remember what your question was.
I shouldn't have interrupted you, sorry.
No.
I was going to ask you a question kind of around microphones, because every now and again, you know, because I do still record stuff in studios, sort of thing. I work at the University of South Wales, so I quite often, they've got great studios there, you know, so I work with students and stuff. But they'll say to me as a singer, you know, can you try this mic? 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 So try me on like half a dozen different mics, maybe more. I say, yeah, that's the one that works with your voice. Are you the same when you're recording guitars?
Yeah, it's a slightly different process. But I mean, when I record a singer, if we've got the time, I'll set up 4 microphones and we'll sing a verse and a chorus on each mic, and we'll see, you know, and every song, a mic, you know, one song, one mic might sound perfect. On the next song, the other mic will sound better on the same singer, you know. It depends, I guess, on the intensity of the part, on the tempo. So if you can, and I firmly believe, I wouldn't say, well, let me just put up the expensive mics. I'll put up a selection. And I still, to be honest, a go-to mic, I would say just get an SM58, you know. Yeah. I know, I mean, a lot of the artists I worked with, when I worked with Suede, SM58, Manic Street Preachers, SM57, Bono, SM58. Lots of people still work with SM58s, you know. It's totally great microphone, you know.
Yeah.
Doesn't cost much.
What does Herbert use?
Well, we like I say, we have a lot of mics. I like ribbon mics. But he has one microphone which he's had since he was 17. You know, that's now I remember what I was talking about. It was about your pedal board.
Sorry.
Yeah, and he had a mic from when he was 17. In the same way, you've maybe got a pedal board from when you were 18 or something. Yeah. But still, when we record, it's a great mic. And actually on eBay, it costs €35. I bought 6 of them. An old Bayer Dynamic DS35.
Oh yeah.
And we'll try that. You know, we have super expensive mics. Sometimes the expensive mics sound great, but sometimes they take away the rawness, and sometimes you want that rawness. So that's the point I was making. And the last thing, your pedal board might still, even though the Kemper is convenient and it has great choruses and delays, your old rusty delay or chorus might still have a better sound, you know.
Yeah.
For you. Yeah. For you.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wondered, talking about kind of working with, let's talk about producers a little bit. So at the university, we got these music courses, and some of them, you know, quite a lot of them really, the creative music technology students, they want to be producers. So, and I did catch the tail end of what you said at that talk that you gave with Herbert, where you kind of talked about this a little bit. But what would your general advice be to young people who want to go into the music industry to be music producers? What would be a good sort of vision for them?
Well, the thing is, producer is a term which has changed so much also over the last years. For me, a producer, it means something very different to a young guy nowadays. Nowadays, a lot of people that would say, I want to be a producer, means they want to write beats and sell beats to singers to use in pop productions. A kind of, let's say, old school producer is someone who works with bands, helps develop the song, gives the song an aesthetic, and oversee how the whole project is recorded and give the album its identity and its sound, Because as an artist, you just write a song, and basically a band is a slightly different scenario, but a solo artist is, I've written a song, how should this song be? And as a producer, you help create that song's identity, Thriller could have been done on an acoustic guitar, or it could have been done the way it was done, But that's what the chosen path is, to work with the artist and the producer together. They find the direction of the song, Whereas a band generally tends to have their own sound, and with a band you tend to more not give them a musical identity, but you put their sound within a different context,
And you still, I mean, I know you did, I can't remember the name of the band. You're working with a band from Latvia a fair bit, and you're working with other kind of, quite a variation of kind of different artists. Do you still sort of take, I don't mean this in a nasty way at all, do you still, as a producer, the artist comes in with the songs, are you already sort of dissecting it and thinking, well, it could go this way, it could go that way? Do you automatically sort of go along those kind of routes?
No, not with a band. That's what I mean, because a band is a different kind of setup.
Okay.
They play when you're with a solo artist, you become the band for the solo artist.
Okay, I get it. Sorry. Yeah.
So you have to get, but with a band, it's kind of, I hope at least. I mean, sometimes a band is like, when they've been together for such a long time, they're like, well, help us. We don't know what to do now, And you see that happening with U2 or with Coldplay. They're searching desperately to always keep a sound, their sound refreshed, and that's why they work with different producers. Even if they're working with the same producer, the producer might get different team members in that have a different speciality to keep a band like U2 that every album sounds refreshed, like they're still going somewhere, that they're not treading water.
Yeah. And you worked with Bono, didn't you? You worked with U2.
I did on one song. I met him a couple of times because he's friends with Herbert, and then he was guest singing on a song on this English album we did, and he it was a duet kind of thing. So, and then he called me up one day on my mobile and made some comments on the rough mix I sent him, or like, can you try a different take? But he's impressive because he's totally, he doesn't jet in, do a vocal and jet off. He wants it to be really good, and he'll keep saying, if you're not happy, I'll do it again,
Oh, okay, well, that's good. That's good.
Like even after he's left the studio,
Yeah.
If you're not happy, I'll go to a studio and re-record it or something. So
I was kind of imagining that the other way round, Bono comes in, does a vocal, and then you say, well, you're a little bit flat on the chorus there or something. Is it quite tricky when you're trying to get that point across to kind of major artists?
Yeah, but to be honest, they're normally not flat. I mean, I can say hand on heart, I've never used auto-tune on any of my productions.
Well done.
But I never felt I had to, because also this thing, the reason we have to have auto-tune is because you have this different way of judging singers and artists now. It's about some technical perfection.
Yes.
But it's totally without any personality,
Yes.
I don't, I love Tom Waits and people like that. They're always out of tune. That's the beauty of it,
Yeah, yeah.
That's.
But they're in tune for them, aren't they?
They're in tune for them,
and
I don't mean that like Bono is not in tune, but we like him for it. He's not out of tune. James, when he sings, he's not out of tune. I mean, these singers are professionals. It's what they do day in, day out. They know how to use their tools, you know. And James from the Manics has an amazing voice. Herbert has an amazing voice. Yeah. And these people, in a way, you need to make sure you've got the first take recorded, because pretty much you can guarantee it'll be either the first or second take that they've nailed it, you know. Because after that, after that, you have to be careful as a producer that you're not going, but maybe you could do this, maybe you could do that, because then you just confuse them and piss them off, and then actually their gut feeling is, you know, totally right. And they're famous before they were working with you, so they know what they're doing.
Yes. Do only got a couple more questions for you, Alex, and thanks very much for your time. It's really nice to see you.
Pleasure.
Anyway.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah.
But I'm just thinking about you. Maybe you don't come across this very much these days. You maybe with thinking back, you did. Advice for kind of bands who are maybe just getting their first step up the ladder and they're going into a more major league studio for the first time. You know, in terms of how those bands should prepare themselves for going into a studio with a producer.
Yeah. Well, know your stuff inside out. You know your parts, know how to get the sound from your instruments, you know, especially
drummers. That's a really
drummers.
good point, really good point.
Yeah, don't sit there thinking anyone is going to wave a magic wand. It's always your job to inspire the people you're working with, not for them to inspire you, you know. So you have to have, you know, you don't need expensive equipment, but you just need to know how to get the best out of what you got. The same with drums. You have to know how to tune a kit. So listen to what people have to say. Don't do anything that you don't feel is what you're about. But at the same time, don't be so arrogant that you don't want to listen to what anyone's got to say. So just keep your ears open and keep striving for what you think you're after. And just work your ass off, because to be honest, it's debatable nowadays whether you definitely don't bother even thinking about doing this for the money, because that's never going to happen. You'll never make the money that you think you're going to make. The only people that make the money are the ones that are doing it because they're passionate about what they're doing, and the money comes aside from that, you know. They don't do it for the money, you know.
Would that apply to somebody like Herbert? Is that how
totally,
he works in terms of creative kind of, you know, passion?
I think everyone I work with and everyone I know, and why I'm kind of lucky enough, you know, all the bands I've worked with that for me, firstly, they mean a lot to the people that know them, like the Manics, like this band in Latvia, like Herbert and his band. You know, they've known each other. The Manics know each other since they were kids. The band in Latvia knew each other since they were kids. The Herbert and his band have known each other since, I mean, some of them are 70 now. They've known each other since they were 17, you know. Yeah. So that is priceless, this kind of, you know, and unbreakable. And as a producer, you can't really, you can enjoy the experience of being with these people because they're normally fantastic people to spend time with and learn from. And I think, you know, they do that. They do what they do because whatever the outcome, they'd still be doing it, you know.
Yeah,
fame or no fame, but they definitely, I think, reached very big heights because their eye was being true to what they wanted to achieve as music and friends, and not for money, you know.
Yeah. I don't know, but you made a point about Elton John earlier. I don't know. I'd imagine with Elton John, you know, something like Elton John, that would probably be a good example of that, you know.
Yeah.
Has creative passion. It's just there, you know.
Totally. And that's why also they give a damn about money in a sense. And that's why someone like Elton John can be so eccentric. You know, I love that. I mean, what a colorful spirit that you, I don't know, he will paint his house pink just for a week because he can, you know. He can do what he wants, and because money's not the point. It's about celebrating life, and you know, and I think we're all, you know, in all these terrible times that we dip in and out of, through history, we find that when we're helping each other and just appreciating the simple things in life, that's when we're the happiest, you know. We weren't, when they do polls, which generation was the happiest? It's not the 80s generation, it's not the 90s generation where no one ever had it better. It was the wartime generation, because no one had anything and everyone was happy to help each other and appreciate waking up the next day.
Yeah. That's a good point. What's next for you? What's your next project? What you want at the moment?
I'm actually, funnily enough, working on an album of my music.
Great.
And Nikki has written a few songs
Wow.
with me for it. And James, I'm hoping, is going to play some guitar on a couple of them.
What will the album be called? Do we know?
Which one? The one I'm working on?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I had an idea the other day, but I forgot what it is now.
You'll have a better one tomorrow. Exactly. What's the time scale on that then, Alex? Is there like a hard cutoff point, or not really?
No, we've been asked to do a concert in September, which fills me with dread. But at the same time, I just use something like that as a destination. So, okay, if we do a concert in September, then in a way we need to be finished with this in end of July, and have it mixed and mastered. But again, I don't even know what the point is. You know, definitely it's not going to trouble any chart band in a competitive sense. It's quite eclectic, but I just enjoy because in a way the last 30 years my job has been trying to make songs commercially viable and a hit. I have an ear for commerciality and hooks. I'm good at that. But at the same time, it's nice to be able to do a set of songs where I don't care if the chorus only comes once in the song and it only happens after 3.5 minutes, you know, because it can get so rigid, the formula, you know. Well, you play some songs to record companies, they're like, yeah, but hang about, we're 45 seconds in and we haven't heard the first chorus yet. What the hell's going on? So at least it's not, you don't have to do that. If you're not trying to dent the charts and you're just doing something for the joy to sell, you know, in a way for me, it's like a photo album. I do it because I want to look back and go, oh, that was great. That was really good what we did.
I really want to hear it now. I'm looking forward to it now.
Yeah, okay. It's all part of the promo blurb for this whole, it's all bullshit. I'm trying to be rock star now.
So is that going to be, you know, Alex Silva will be the artist name for this? Yeah?
No, it'll be, I don't know, the idiots, whatever you come up with, like that. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, please let me know when it's happening.
Yeah, I will. Okay.
Really want to hear that. The final question for you, and I guess it could even be a straightforward no. I don't know. But, you know, we've talked all the way through your life, from when you started out as a kid in Philly to now living in Germany, working with Herbert, married to Nina. I know it's all going so well. Do you have any regrets at all about your career? Is there anything you would have done differently?
No, only that the only regret I had during my career, now I don't have it so much, is I started off quite late. You know, I think I started being an assistant in a studio. It was after Papa's New Face, so I must have been like 26 or something, which is kind of unheard of. You're normally 16 to be an assistant. So I felt I was always trying to play catch up, and well, I need to have achieved this by now. So in a way, you know, I was always enjoying what I was doing, but I always felt the pressure. Yeah, but I'm still only engineering bands that aren't so, you know, that aren't doing so well, and I need to progress and get further. And maybe that's what I said at a certain point with Dave Stewart. I was suddenly found myself doing all the things you dreamt of, but then thinking, well, maybe, although it's amazing, am I loving the songs I'm working on, you know? So maybe it's just time to take a step, go back a step, and fill in the blanks that you missed out by trying to race to this line of working with AAA artists, and then you missed a lot of the things in between, kind of thing. So, but I think I filled in all the gaps now, so I don't regret anything.
Well, that's a good answer. Yeah. Well, Alex, thank you very much.
Yeah, it was great to see you. Really, I mean that.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah.